I would say 5 to 10 miles per hour. Getting into the extended forecast, okay, or second half, we'll talk about temperatures that will be quite warm the next couple of days. And then we've got more rain on the way, okay? This is going to be one of the situations where the rain stays out west of us until that ridge to the south of us starts to fade. When we get into that period of time, notice that we're going to be buffeting up against the rain amounts, getting a little higher as you head farther west, but it's just not edging closer to us. It just never really crosses the plain across the Mississippi River, with the exception of a couple hit and miss showers. I think there is a better chance for some rain in the extended range, and we'll show you that here in just a second. But, you know, of course, stay up to date with the very latest anytime on the Action News 5 First Alert Weather app. This is looking ahead. This is Sunday. So we're looking ahead towards the end of the 7-day forecast. Area of low pressure developing. Look at the potential for some wintry weather from Denver, Colorado up towards Minneapolis and St. Paul. That's not heading our direction, but some cooler weather that's locked up behind it. Look at this line here. That's the 32-degree line. They're heading towards Wichita, Kansas, the Oklahoma Panhandle, as well as the Texas Panhandle. This is what we would call blue norther. That would be coming southward as we head into the beginning portions of the end of October, early portions of November. This is early Halloween morning. Rain chances coming through the area. Look at the cold air locked up behind it, dropping southward. If this is to be believed, we'd have a pretty chilly day on Halloween. It wouldn't be terribly bad, but you know, definitely colder than what we will see for the remainder of this week. So if you're looking towards the potential for cooler weather, it's about a week away. Hopefully. I say hopefully because we've seen this song and dance before. I said this last week. You know, it seems like every time we look at the computer guidance, it seems like right at the end of it is where that frontal boundary is located at. And each day, it just gets pushed back a day later, a day later, a day later. Eventually, it will break. But right now, in the short term, it's staying warm. And we don't see very many changes. We're hopeful in the extended range we get some rainfall to come through here and the cooler temperatures. But in the meantime, highs in the 80s, overnight 60s to near 70. This part of the forecast here, we're talking Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. High temperatures may be approaching record territory. The record high today is 89. You know, obviously we're going to fall short of that. But these record highs, 86, 85, those record highs may be in jeopardy. Some of those go back to the 1900s, early 1900s. So, you know, some of these record highs could be at risk of falling as we head towards the end of this week, heading into the upcoming weekend. Of course, a lot of folks may have their trick-or-treating plans, trunk-or-treat plans this weekend. I think you're good outside of a couple of passing shower chances and back and forth between clouds and sun. But it's going to be warm. It's going to be, you know, a little sticky outside comparatively to where we should be for this time of the year, which is in the lower 70s. We're far away from that and probably going to stay far away from it for at least the next week, maybe week and a half. I'm not upset about it. At the same time, yesterday we were, you know, it was a little different because like on Saturday when we got up to 88, you know, it felt decent because we had a bit of a breeze. Yesterday the breezes were a little bit lower and we got only to about 79, but for some reason that sun was just beaming down. It got a little toasty yesterday. I was down at River Arts Fest. I just felt it out there. The next couple of days, you're going to notice not only just the temperatures, but also the humidity levels, and that's why you're going to see those overnight lows getting a little bit toastier, closer to 70 degrees by the end of the week. And like I said, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday would actually rival record highs for us here in the Mid-South. And we're looking at that potential for cooler weather beyond the 7-day forecast. If you look at the 10-day on the Action News 5 First Alert Weather app, it would suggest that Monday probably be near 70, and then on Halloween itself, maybe near 60. But that's to be determined, all based on that placement of the frontal boundary that could come down the pipeline. No problem. Clouds hanging on tough here this morning, but we'll see some sun breaks from time to time later on today. Temperatures in the 50s in most spots, 60s in other locations, including here in Memphis at 60 degrees right on the nose. We'll work our way back up towards the lower to middle 80s today. Winds coming out of the south and southeast around 10 miles per hour. Of course, that southerly breeze helps boost the temperatures up between now and the end of this work week across the mid-south, well above average, actually nearing some records by Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Small chances for a few showers by the upcoming weekend.
This is an Action News 5 update.
Good morning, everyone. 7:26 the time on a Monday. I'm Andrew Douglas. Some of the stories we are following for you this morning. Memphis police investigating overnight shootings. This one here happened at East Trigg in Latham right before 1 o'clock in the morning. A white SUV was at the scene, as well as several Memphis police cruisers. One person was hurt. It's unclear on their condition. A second shooting happened a little after 1 North Evergreen Street in Poplar, north of Madison. One person taken to the hospital. Their condition has not been released.
As you're heading out the door this morning, but we are still dealing with those clouds, and the clouds will be pretty dominant in the skies throughout the day. A live look from our High 5 camera in Olive Branch, where it's currently 59 degrees, 60 in Tunica, as well as West Memphis and the city of Memphis, 52 in Covington. Good morning to our friends in Tipton County, 56 as you're starting off in Somerville. So from here, we'll work our way towards the lower to a few middle 80s today. We'll see a few more sun breaks by the afternoon hours, and I think back and forth between sun and clouds will be the going story for us, along with near record warmth as we head towards the end of this week, with a small chance of a shower by the weekend.
Your first alert traffic report, sponsored by Gateway Tires.
All right, guys, it's a busy one out there this morning. Let me tell you where the problem spots are. My friends on 385, if you're traveling westbound, so going towards 240, we got some stop and go action there because of an accident that's on the ramp to get you on a 240 westbound. Then you'll notice we have some red developing off the stretch of 240 near Poplar going westbound. So making your way past 385 towards 55, tag an extra 15 minutes for your morning ride out. And expect delays on 240 eastbound near Lamar. Traffic is backed all the way up near Airways.
Get the latest headlines right now at actionnews5.com. Another update in 30 minutes. Do your thing, man.
Do your thing. "21, won't you do something?" All right. And thanks for joining us here on the Action News 5 digital desk. We're talking some pretty quiet weather across the Mid-South over the next couple of days, but warmer than average by a long shot. And that's your first alert to some warm temperatures that are going to be in play, not only from the standpoint of the next day or so, it's really going to be this entire week. And actually, by the end of this week, we're talking near record warmth. Temperatures today starting off in the upper 50s and lower 60s, working our way towards the lower to middle 80s before it's all said and done. A little bit of a breeze still coming through here out of the south, and that's going to help to boost up the temperatures. We'll also see a lot of high and mid-level clouds that will break for a couple of peaks of sunshine by the time we head towards the afternoon hours. As you'll notice here on the First Alert Futurecast, a couple of breaks in the clouds by lunchtime, with temperatures at that point towards the lower to middle 70s, on our way to the lower to middle 80s before the afternoon is out. Tonight, clouds will thicken back up. Overnight lows back down through the 60s starting off on your Tuesday. Look at the rain to the west of us. Probably thinking, maybe that could get here. Unfortunately, it stays out to the west of us as high pressure to the south and east of us winds out, and that keeps our temperatures quite warm and keeps the weather pretty quiet over the next few days. So the rain stays far away from us. If you want to find some appreciable rainfall, you're going to go back up towards the north, up towards Springfield and Joplin, Fayetteville and Tulsa. and even up towards St. Louis as well. We're going to stay dry here between now and probably the end of this week. And by the time we head towards the end of the week, the temperatures are going to still be plenty toasty. It doesn't take very much when you have a very dry ground. Of course, it's been very dry as of late, and that's allowed for the drought monitor to expand with the severe drought now moving into more sections of the Action News 5 coverage area. Extreme drought across portions of northwest Mississippi. Right now, Panola County, the only county in the Action News 5 coverage area underneath the burn ban. But at any rate, it doesn't matter because we're going to have that low humidity, occasionally some breezes, and that's going to lead up with the dry conditions, lead up to fire weather issues between now and probably the end of this week until we can maybe get some rain in here by next week. But even with that being said, between now and probably Sunday, just not a ton of rain. We might catch a shower here or there on the back end of this week as that frontal boundary gets a little bit closer to us, but it just doesn't break the plane of the Mississippi River until probably early next week. Of course, stay up to date with the very latest on the 10-day forecast on the Action News 5 First Alert Weather app. You can download it in the Google Play Store and the Apple App Store, and you can see what happens with this upcoming system. Again, this is giving you a first alert to a potential system, and I say a potential system because if you were watching last week, we were talking about a system that could come down the pipeline for this week. And each day I mentioned it seems like it got pushed back a day farther back. And unfortunately, it seems like it's done it again. But the general consensus still remains the same, even though that the days may have been pushed back. And again, it goes back to that ridge of high pressure still burgeoning out of the south and east, holding everything back. But eventually, when that starts to break up, it will allow for this front to make some progress in our direction. The question mark is when exactly will that happen? Well, as it stands right now, a lot of the guidance would suggest early next week, right around Halloween. That would feature rain moving into the fold and colder temperatures diving southward as well. Look at that blue line there. That's the 32-degree line, 7 in the morning on Tuesday of next week. Obviously not close enough to us, but still on its way and will definitely be trending cooler by next week. But in the meantime, warmer temperatures near record highs Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Today's record high at 89, so we're not going to hit that. But if you look at the record highs, they start to ease down towards the middle 80s towards the end of this week. So we could be rivaling some record highs, even with the temperature across the board in the lower to middle 80s. Overnight's in the 60s and near 70 degrees. And again, by the weekend, chance for a couple of passing showers. Again, giving you a first alert to the warm temperatures. But the thing is that eventually, things will start to break, and there could be some rain on the back end of the extended forecast. Again, you can find the 10-day anytime on actionnews5.com or the Action News 5 First Alert Weather app. No rain showers across across the Mid-South, but we are looking for high and mid-level clouds. That's going to be the big story for us across the region today. That's coming from the same storm system that Al was just talking about, Norma, which has made its way onshore in northern Mexico. High and mid-level clouds continue tomorrow. We'll go for highs in the 80s today, tomorrow, and throughout the extended forecast as well. Highs, it will actually be nearing record territory Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Slim chance of a shower to return by the weekend.
This is an Action News 5 Live update.
Hey, it's 7:56 here on a Monday morning. High and mid-level clouds continue to stream in across the Mid-South. We're dry, though, as we're kicking off your new work and school week. Live look from our High 5 camera here in Midtown. You're looking back down Union towards downtown, the Medical District as well. You see the Bass Pro Shop off in the distance. And, of course, the quiet weather continues across the area. We're right now in the upper 50s and lower 60s in a lot of spots. Cooler off to the east where the skies have been a little bit clearer during the overnight period, but the clouds have rolled in as well. We've got those clouds hanging around, some peaks of sun possible this afternoon with high temperatures in the lower to middle 80s. Overnight tonight should be mostly cloudy. There have been some indication that we could have a rogue shower tonight, but you know, the thing is that most of us are going to stay dry, and the appreciable rain stays well to the west of us as we go into the overnight period into tomorrow and really through the next couple of days. Still pretty toasty with highs in the middle 80s expected for your Tuesday. We'll stay in the low to mid 80s as we head towards the end of the week. A slightly better chance of a couple of passing showers as we head towards the upcoming weekend.
Your first alert traffic report, sponsored by Gateway Tires.
And Monday Madness on the roadways this morning. Take a look at my mapping system. Lots of red developing. Go ahead and call your boss. Let them know you might be 10 to 15 minutes late. We have heavy traffic coming from 40 at Whitten all the way down towards the flyover. And then once you get past the flyover and you work all the way from Sam Cooper to Poplar to Walnut Grove, we got heavy traffic in that area as well. Also on 385 westbound, making your way towards 240, traffic is slow moving there. We had an early morning accident, but now I believe the delays we're seeing in that direction is because of the rush hour traffic. And then my friends traveling on 240 going eastbound just past Lamar, we have a police investigation and they've been working that scene all morning long. No ETA on when that area will reopen, but we have one lane blocked and that's causing delays all the way back near Mill Branch. So tag some extra travel time. If you have to see it to believe it, let me show you what it looks like outside. This is 40 at Whitten. It's crowded. All those lanes there are moving slowly, and really the same story on 240 at Mill Branch. Do we have a Tennessee in 10? Okay, be there shortly. Anywhere. Memphis rapper NLE Choppa is talking about his brief disappearance over the weekend, sending many into a panic. On Friday, the 20-year-old rapper's mother and manager went viral on social media after posting her concerns for her son's whereabouts. He posted a 26-minute video on his YouTube page, assuring the public he was fine and his mother was only anxious that he might have been in danger. A critical blow to the Grizzlies lineup ahead of Wednesday's season opener against the Pelicans. Steven Adams is out for the entire season due to a knee surgery. He's getting work done on his right ACL after suffering an injury back in January. It was originally supposed to keep him out for under a month. Then the timeline kept getting pushed back and he never played again last season. The team opted to go with rehab instead of surgery. Going into the offseason, things looked good when the team came back for training camp. Adams was practicing and played in the preseason opener, but the stability in the knee wasn't there. So his knee surgery is expected to keep him out for the season. We're wishing him well this morning in his recovery. Those are your headlines from the Mid-South. Okay. Good morning, I'm Taylor Tucker with Action News 5. Here are some of the top stories we're following in the Mid-South. Memphis rapper NLE Choppa is talking about his brief disappearance over the weekend, sending many into a panic. On Friday, the 20-year-old rapper's mother and manager went viral on social media after posting her concerns for her son's whereabouts. He posted a 26-minute video on his YouTube page, assuring the public he was fine and his mother was only anxious that he might have been in danger. And a critical blow to the Grizzlies lineup ahead of Wednesday's season opener against the Pelicans. Steven Adams is out for the entire season due to a knee surgery. He's getting work done on his right ACL after injuring it back in January. It was originally supposed to keep him out for under a month. Then the timeline kept getting pushed back, and he never played again last season. The team opted to go with rehab instead of surgery going into the offseason. And things looked good when the team came back for training camp. Adams was practicing and played in the preseason opener, but the stability in the knee was not there. So his knee surgery is expected to keep him out for the season. We're wishing him well this morning in his recovery. Those are your headlines from the Mid-South.
High and mid-level clouds continue to stream across the Mid-South this morning. A look in Oxford from our MDOT camera at Highway 6 and Jackson Avenue on the west side of Oxford. Right now, 61 degrees there, 63 in Memphis, 60 in West Memphis, 57 in Harrisburg, and we're starting off at 54 in Selmer. So we continue that upward trend towards the lower to a few middle 80s today. A few more breaks in the clouds later on this afternoon. I think we go back and forth between clouds and sun. It's staying well above average for this time of the year all the way through the end of this week. A chance for near record-setting heat as we head towards Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday.
This is an Action News 5 update.
Hey, it's 8:26 here on a Monday morning. A live look from our High 5 camera here in Midtown. A little bit of sunshine poking through those clouds as expected. Again, going to go back and forth between clouds and some sunshine here today as high and mid-level clouds continue to stream in from the south and west. Temperatures in the 50s and 60s. 63 officially at Memphis International, 64 in Clarksdale, 52 though in Dyersburg. Good morning to our friends in Dyer County. 54 Selmer, 50 in Corinth at this hour. And again, back and forth between clouds and sunshine here as we work our way towards the lower to a few middle 80s today. Keep in mind, that's well above average for this time of the year. Average high 73 this time of the year, and we're going to be well above that between now and really the entire week ahead. Actually, by the time we get towards Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, nearing record highs, as the record highs will actually be in the middle 80s those days. We're still upper 80s today and tomorrow. A chance for a rogue shower or two can't be ruled out as we get towards the upcoming weekend.
Your first alert traffic report, sponsored by Gateway Tires.
And we still have some lingering delays out there on the roadways this morning. Take a look. Where you see the red is where you'll have slow-moving traffic. On 40, my friends traveling westbound towards Warford, just past that area, going towards, I believe, Watkins area. Keep in mind you will run into some delays just because we have some stalled cars over on the shoulder. And then, of course, near the flyover, of course, around this time, that's when we start to see that traffic flow there increase. I-55, my friends in Mississippi, if you're traveling northbound just past Pleasant Hill Road, we have an early morning accident that's causing very slow moving traffic in that area. Why don't you work 51 to get you where you need to go?
We might be able to catch a shower or two by the end of the week, but most spots will likely remain dry between now and then. Right now, dry and just some sunshine trying to poke through these clouds this morning from our High 5 camera at the University of Memphis. Temperatures 50s and 60s. We'll continue that upward trend towards the lower to a few middle 80s today. A bit more sunshine breaking through the clouds here over the next couple of hours. We continue a near record run of temperatures well above average between now all the way through the end of the work week. A chase for a few passing showers possible by the upcoming weekend.
This is an Action News 5 update.
Competition through sport have allowed us to see past our differences and achieve a common goal. Over
2, 3.
Told y'all they were sure.
This is an Action News 5 update.
Competition through sport have allowed us to see past our differences and achieve a common goal. Over
2, 3.
Told y'all they
try. Whoa. Mic check. 1 2 1 2. Mic check. Mic check. Mic check. 1 2 1 2. Mic check. Mic check.
This is an Action News 5 update.
Good morning to you. It is 8:56. I'm Ariana Poindexter. Here are your top stories of the morning. Memphis rapper NLE Choppa is talking about his brief disappearance over the weekend, sending many into a panic. On Friday, the 20-year-old rapper's mother and manager went viral on social media after posting her concerns for her son's whereabouts. He posted a 26-minute video on his YouTube page assuring the public he was fine and his mother was only anxious that he might have been in danger. And the Grizzlies will be hosting a plaza party later this morning. The party will have a live DJ and the Claw crew. The party is set to start at 11:30 this morning and it ends at 1 o'clock. The Grizzlies in Big River Street will also be offering exclusive $9.01 tickets at the FedEx Forum box office, only starting at noon, and fans can buy up to 2 tickets while supplies last. Patrick, how's the weather going to be looking for this event?
It looks like it'll be fantastic. You know, we'll have the clouds and, of course, the warmer temperatures still in play across the area. We'll take a live look from our High 5 camera at Northwest Mississippi Community College in Senatobia, where temperatures are creeping up slowly but surely. Middle 60s now here in Memphis. We're 61 in Batesville, 59 in Olive Branch, 63 presently in Oxford, and lower 50s still in some of the cooler pockets this morning. So clouds breaking up for some peaks of sunshine gradually here, and I think we'll get a quick warm up this afternoon back towards the lower to a few middle 80s before it's all said and done. We stay well above average between now and the end of the week, nearing records in some instances.
All right, you can get the latest headlines at actionnews5.com, and don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Twitter. We'll have more news and weather for you coming up on Action News 5 midday at 11.
rainfall. You're going to go back up towards the north, up towards Springfield and Joplin, Fayetteville, and Tulsa, and even up towards St. Louis as well. We're going to stay dry here between now and probably the end of this week. And by the time we head towards the end of the week, the temperatures are going to still be plenty toasty. It doesn't take very much when you have a very dry ground. Of course, it's been very dry as of late, and that's allowed for the drought monitor to expand with the severe drought now moving into more sections of the Action News 5 coverage area. Extreme drought across portions of northwest Mississippi. Right now, Panola County, the only county in the Action News 5 coverage area underneath the burn ban. But at any rate, it doesn't matter because we're going to have that low humidity, occasionally some breezes, and that's going to lead up with the dry conditions, lead up to fire weather issues between now and probably the end of this week until we can maybe get some rain in here by next week. But even with that being said, between now and probably Sunday, just not a ton of rain. We might catch a shower here or there on the back end of this week as that frontal boundary gets a little bit closer to us, but it just doesn't break the plane of the Mississippi River until probably early next week. Of course, stay up to date with the very latest on the 10-day forecast on the Action News 5 First Alert Weather app. You can download it in the Google Play Store and the Apple App Store, and you can see what happens with this upcoming system. Again, this is giving you a first alert to a potential system, and I say a potential system because if you were watching last week, we were talking about a system that could come down the pipeline for this week. And each day I mentioned it seems like it got pushed back a day farther back. And unfortunately, it seems like it's done it again. But the general consensus still remains the same, even though that the days may have been pushed back. And again, it goes back to that ridge of high pressure still burgeoning out of the south and east, holding everything back. But eventually, when that starts to break up, it will allow for this front to make some progress in our direction. The question mark is when exactly will that happen? Well, as it stands right now, a lot of the guidance would suggest early next week, right around Halloween. That would feature rain moving into the fold and colder temperatures diving southward as well. Look at that blue line there. That's the 32-degree line, 7 in the morning on Tuesday of next week. Obviously not close enough to us, but still on its way and will definitely be trending cooler by next week. But in the meantime, warmer temperatures near record highs Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Today's record high at 89, so we're not going to hit that. But if you look at the record highs, they start to ease down towards the middle 80s towards the end of this week, so we could be rivaling some record highs, even with the temperature across the board in the lower to middle 80s. Overnight's in the 60s and near 70 degrees, and again by the weekend, chance for a couple of passing showers. Again, giving you a first alert to the warm temperatures, but the thing is that eventually, things will start to break, and there could be some rain on the back end of the extended forecast. Again, you can find the 10-day anytime on actionnews5.com or the Action News 5 First Alert Weather app.
Well, if you've lived in Memphis for any amount of time, you know we have some of the best water in the world, and that makes some of the best breweries in the world. I actually had a conversation over the weekend with a bunch of people just kind of weighing in on their favorite breweries. There's so many good ones, and Grind City Brewery is said to have the most unique views in town, almost like an Oktoberfest beer garden. Check this out. It's a subject of a 5-star story by Kim Clark.
A beautiful view from 76 Waterworks Avenue, just off North 2nd in North Memphis, where Grind City Brewing Company sits in the shadow of a grain and barge depot. The perfect place to celebrate Oktoberfest, according to the brewery's events director.
And because of our unique property, we're able to service a lot more people than a normal brewery would be able to do. It's a celebration not only of beer and Oktoberfest, but it also coincides with our anniversary as a tap room.
Taking care of beardness for 3 years now, Grind City is the brainchild of Hopper Seeley. Yes, a hops man named Hopper. He says he wanted to get in the game after working jobs for almost a dozen other breweries.
And we started looking at areas and found this piece of property, and the vision was immediately like, I'm gonna plant a brewery here, and we're gonna completely start the momentum in North Memphis.
In addition to nearly 5 acres of land, the property includes a World War II Quonset hut that Seeley says was filled with wood from the previous business.
So this was the Tri-State Veneer and Plywood company for roughly 90 years. They were around just making different bent chair parts, chair legs, chair backs, everything.
All those leftover wooden chair backs, molds, legs, and other wood gave Seeley an idea, building on the history of Tri-State.
So all the wood that's in our tap room is actually from the chair factory itself. The bar tops, the tables, the legs, all of it is from the chair factory. Even in our beers, the blueprints that are in the background of each can is actually a blueprint of the chair's manufacturing.
The wood that you see, I made glue for it.
Maintenance manager Gordon Glass worked at Tri-State for about 50 years, starting at age 17, and still works in the same facility, but now for Grind City Brewing Company.
So they asked me to stay. So I thank God being around my brother. This is my family.
Seeley and crew say it's that sense of community that elevates the craft beer experience at Grind City Brewing.
The main goal is when you actually get here, we want to make sure that you get your beer fast, you get to hang out with your friends and family here, and when you leave here, it's just the whole package.
So one of the biggest things here that's a founding pillar is community. For us to be a representative of the area is really an incredible opportunity for us.
Grind City brews and cans on site. This amber lager is called Thaddeus. It's one of 4 beers offered year-round, in addition to 7 limited releases and a hard seltzer called Memphis Mule.
Yes, we put a lot of energy into making sure that our beers are delicious, consistent, and always fitting a variety.
And while you can purchase Grind City brews at grocery stores and bars around the region, Seeley believes the brewery's tap room truly adds something special.
We want to be the pub of Memphis, and pub is now just a term for a bar, but it was for public gathering. So we want to be the public gathering point of Memphis, especially North Memphis. And no name fit that better than Grind City.
Cheers to that. In North Memphis, Kim Clark, Action News 5.
On a crisp spring night in 2019, members of the Memphis Police Department's Crisis Intervention Team responded to a home in southeast Memphis.
Mentally or like physically? Just like physically.
That's 20-year-old Joshua Cortez, whose mother called officers because her son had been drinking and told her he felt like dying.
Can I sit down? Yeah, you can sit down, please.
You're hearing Officer Colin Berryhill and watching the scene as recorded through his body camera. Cortez had no criminal history, and Berryhill was specially trained to respond to those struggling with mental crises. The 10-year police veteran persuaded Cortez to speak with him outside.
Y'all ain't gonna detain me though, are you? You're free. You're free. You're totally free. All right.
Once outside, Cortez began crying, saying he's had family issues.
I mean, are you feeling suicidal or anything like that? No, I'm just sad, that's all. You're just sad? I don't want to go back, please, brother.
Cortez is saying he doesn't want to go back to a treatment center.
I mean, I don't have any reason to take you anywhere right now.
Berryhill explained he's concerned Cortez will hurt himself. And after they walk inside, the officer spoke to Cortez's mother, saying they will have to take the young man into custody.
Is he aggressive?
Well, he should be, but
well, we're going to try to avoid all that.
It's then that Officer Berryhill's tone noticeably changes as he starts giving Cortez commands.
Stand up, put your hands behind your back. Stand up, put your hands behind your back. Wait, play with me. Stand up, put your hands behind your back.
No, y'all said that.
Stand up, put your hands behind your back.
Y'all said that.
Stand up. No, I said you weren't at that time. You are now. Stand up.
Whoa, come on, man.
Come on, man. Come on.
Come on, no.
Just cooperate.
Come on, please.
Just cooperate.
Man, please.
No.
Please.
No, I got more story. Cooperate, man.
You can see Cortez put his hands behind his back while he continues to plead with officers.
Please.
A minimum of 4 officers were in full control of Cortez's arms and hands, yet Berryhill used his taser to shock Cortez.
Oh my God, that taser!
Hey,
Internal records provided by the Memphis Police Department show Officer Berryhill violated the department's weapons and excessive force policies that night. Berryhill explained to the deputy police chief during the internal investigation, "I felt a simple pain compliance for a second could get him to comply long enough to where we could get him into cuffs." But using a taser for pain compliance is not only against MPD policy, but also policies at many other police departments, according to Clark Neely with the Cato Institute in Washington, D.C.
The problem is that you can't use a taser as a form of punishment.
Neely works with the libertarian think tank to advocate against police officers who violate the constitutional rights of citizens.
We all have a constitutional right to be free from unreasonable force. You're not supposed to use a weapon unless the situation really calls for it, because otherwise that's an unreasonable use of force.
An Action News 5 investigation reveals Memphis police internal investigators found Berryhill in fact violated the department's excessive force and weapons policies 3 times in less than a year. According to those internal documents, the first time was in 2018 when Berryhill tased a juvenile in the back even though he did not pose an immediate threat.
I'll wait till he turned around. He was still getting him. I took him to the ground.
The second time was when he tased Cortez.
Put your hands behind your back.
And the third was on Owen Buzzard, a nonviolent man who was handcuffed when Berryhill tased him. The night of that incident with Buzzard, an MPD supervisor on scene told Officer Berryhill he'd earned a new nickname.
It's Taser Face.
After MPD launched their internal investigation into Berryhill's use of excessive force, they completed it in October 2019, but waited an entire year to schedule his disciplinary hearing. Berryhill abruptly resigned the night before that hearing and took a job with the South Haven, Mississippi Police Department the following month, in November 2020. Nearly 2 years later, Memphis Police Chief C.J. Davis asked the state to take Berryhill's law enforcement certification, which would have prevented him from policing in Tennessee. But the state didn't act on that request for nearly another year and didn't schedule his hearing until we started asking questions.
Post Commission to order.
The Peace Officer Standards and Training Commission, or POST, is responsible for certifying and decertifying police officers in Tennessee. But before it can decertify officers, POST must notify them and then schedule a hearing. In an email, a spokesperson for the agency that oversees POST wrote, Memphis Police Chief C.J. Davis signed a decertification request in December 2021, but but didn't send it until July 2022. Post sent Berryhill a notification letter the following year in June, but couldn't reach him because he moved without telling Post, which is required. After we started asking questions in late September, Post notified Berryhill of his pending decertification via email on October 3rd. He's now on the agenda for December 14th. The spokesman also wrote there are nearly 40 other officers waiting for decertification letters, but Post can't find them.
That's the $64,000 question. Why did they take so long? There's no question that MPD and the state of Tennessee, through the Post Commission and these national organizations, have structures in place to catch this sort of thing. The problem is, it doesn't seem that they're working efficiently.
Mark Paraschia with the Institute for Public Service Reporting is working in partnership with the Action News 5 investigators to continue digging into this issue.
We're going to do our best to hold the police accountable.
The Memphis Police Department said it would answer a list of questions we sent them, but they did not, and then they stopped responding to us. Now, we are currently looking into that list of police officers waiting to be decertified. More than a third of them are coming from MPD. For the Action News 5 investigators and in partnership with the Institute for Public Service Reporting, I'm Jessica Jaglois.
Good morning, everyone. Andrew Douglas here in the Action News 5 digital desk. This First Responders Day, we take a moment to recognize and thank our heroes for the sacrifices they make to keep our communities safe. And for many people, you might not know about the lasting impact that first responders, when they do their job, what kind of impact that has on their own health. Many firefighters and veterans are twice as likely to develop ALS, also known as Lou Gehrig's disease, than those who haven't served in these professions. We're talking about something that is very debilitating. We're joined right now by retired firefighter, U.S. veteran Ken, who's going to share his personal story of living with ALS, and he's joined by his wife and primary caregiver, Andy. They join us now on the digital desk. Thank you to both for being a part of this interview this morning. Thank you. Ken, I want to hear from you. I guess, tell me your personal story as a firefighter and your ALS diagnosis. Good morning.
Good morning, and thank you so much for having us and allowing us to share our story. My journey with ALS started when I retired from the Dallas Fire Department after 33 years in June of 2020. I was doing things around the house, chores, and I went out into the garage during that fall of 20, and I reached up to the third shelf to get a cooler down from the third shelf, and I noticed that my left arm wouldn't reach up as high as my right arm, and I was like, what the heck's going on? So I kind of struggled to shove it up there, and I was able to get the cooler down, but I noticed after that it was happening again and again. So I ended up talking with my doctor, and I went through a series of tests, and because you're a firefighter, a lot of times the medical profession zooms in on, oh, well, you were a firefighter for 33 years, so you've got a problem with your shoulder, or you have a problem in your neck, or something like that. So I went through a whole series of tests until finally, in the spring, summer, early summer of 21, one of the doctors said, you know, maybe you should go to the ALS clinic. So I went to the ALS clinic and started a bunch of tests there. And finally, on November 22nd of 2021, I was diagnosed with ALS.
Tell me about your time in the U.S. forces, and then how long, both with being someone as a first responders and being a veteran, how long of a time period was that?
Well, I was in the regular Army for 4 years active, and then I was 1 year active again as a recruiter for the Texas National Guard. I stayed in the reserves here in Texas for about another 7 years, and that time was kind of at the same time I was on the fire department. But regular Army was 4 years, fire department was 33 years. So I was right there in that 40-year range of doing, sharing, you know, being able to help people and help protect our country.
So when you were diagnosed with ALS, what did you do immediately afterwards?
The day I was diagnosed, I would have been more surprised if the doctor had told me I had something else, because by that time, it had spread to my right shoulder and arm, and I was having difficulties with everything at that point with my arms. But after the diagnosis, I immediately kind of went into first responder mode. I mean, I just went ahead and figured out, okay, we got to have a plan. We're going to move forward. We're going to work on this. We're going to put the fire out. And I just kept moving forward. And part of that was being able to share my story at shareyouralsstory.com. And that's another great way of getting your story out. But yeah, we moved forward and worked on it.
Andy, I want to talk to you. Caregivers, they can feel so alone, just dealing with the process of being a caregiver. Can you share your experience and anything you'd like to say to other caregivers out there?
Yes, absolutely. When Ken was diagnosed, fortunately, we had a big tribe surrounding us, not only with family and friends, but fellow firefighters. So that was wonderful. And you lean into everybody that you can, because it can be a dark place and you are on your own. So everyone's experience is different. So, you need to partner with groups, family, whatever. And also what we do with Ken is we partner with MTPA, and then to share our story, is to go to shareyouralsstory.com. And through that experience, we all can gain further information. Ken is currently on Radicava, and while it works for us, it may be different for other patients. So patients should always talk to their doctor. Visit radicava.com for full prescribing and patient information, and then make decisions moving forward for that.
You know, it's great to hear about that treatment, Andy, because I believe that through the ALS Bucket Challenge, which many of our viewers and perhaps you guys remember a few years ago, they were able to come up with that treatment because of all the extensive donations and research that was done from that. Ken, I want to leave you with the last word. Is there anything else you want to mention about this, about having ALS, this issue? Surprisingly to me, affects first responders in an extraordinary amount?
Yeah, I would tell all the first responders out there, all the firefighters, my brothers and sisters, I am you. I was a firefighter for 33 years, and now I'm having a life with ALS. But always remember, there's help out there for you. Go to shareyouralsstory.com, and that allows you to get your story out. But please understand, I was a firefighter too, and I'm you.
Ken, Andy, Sutcliffe, we appreciate you sharing your story with us. God bless you both, and thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks for joining us here on the Action News 5 Digital Desk. We're talking some pretty quiet weather across the Mid-South over the next couple of days, but warmer than average by a long shot. And that's your first alert to some warm temperatures that are going to be in play, not only from the standpoint of the next day or so, it's really going to be this entire week. And actually, by the end of this week, we're talking near record warmth. Temperatures today starting off in the upper 50s and lower 60s, working our way towards the lower to middle 80s before it's all said and done. A little bit of a breeze still coming through here out of the south, and that's going to help to boost up the temperatures. We'll also see a lot of high and mid-level clouds that will break for a couple of peaks of sunshine by the time we head towards the afternoon hours. As you'll notice here on the First Alert Futurecast, a couple of breaks in the clouds by lunchtime with temperatures at that point towards the lower to middle 70s on our way to the lower to middle 80s before the afternoon is out. Tonight, clouds will thicken back up. Overnight lows back down through the 60s starting off on your Tuesday. Look at the rain to the west of us. Probably thinking, maybe that could get here. Unfortunately, it stays out to the west of us as high pressure to the south and east of us winds out, and that keeps our temperatures quite warm and keeps the weather pretty quiet over the next few days. So the rain stays far away from us. If you want to find some appreciable rainfall, you're going to go back up towards the north, up towards Springfield and Joplin, Fayetteville and Tulsa, and even up towards St. Louis as well. We're going to stay dry here between now and probably the end of this week. And by the time we head towards the end of the week, the temperatures are going to still be plenty toasty. It doesn't take very much when you have a very dry ground. Of course, it's been very dry as of late, and that's allowed for the drought monitor to expand with the severe drought now moving into more sections of the Action News 5 coverage area. Extreme drought across portions of northwest Mississippi. Right now, Panola County, the only county in the Action News 5 coverage area underneath the burn ban. But at any rate, it doesn't matter because we're going to have that low humidity, occasionally some breezes, and that's going to lead up with the dry conditions, lead up to fire weather issues between now and probably the end of this week until we can maybe get some rain in here by next week. But even with that being said, between now and probably Sunday, just not a ton of rain. We might catch a shower here or there on the back end of this week as that frontal boundary gets a little bit closer to us, but it just doesn't break the plane of the Mississippi River until probably early next week. Of course, stay up to date with the very latest on the 10-day forecast on the Action News 5 First Alert Weather app. You can download it in the Google Play Store and the Apple App Store, and you can see what happens with this upcoming system. Again, this is giving you a first alert to a potential system, and I say a potential system because if you were watching last week, we were talking about a system that could come down the pipeline for this week. And each day I mentioned it seems like it got pushed back a day farther back. And unfortunately, it seems like it's done it again. But the general consensus still remains the same, even though that the days may have been pushed back. And again, it goes back to that ridge of high pressure still burgeoning out of the south and east, holding everything back. But eventually, when that starts to break up, it will allow for this front to make some progress in our direction. The question mark is when exactly will that happen? Well, as it stands right now, a lot of the guidance would suggest early next week, right around Halloween. That would feature rain moving into the fold and colder temperatures diving southward as well. Look at that blue line there. That's the 32-degree line, 7 in the morning on Tuesday of next week. Obviously not close enough to us, but still on its way and will definitely be trending cooler by next week. But in the meantime, warmer temperatures near record highs Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Today's record high at 89, so we're not going to hit that. But if you look at the record highs, they start to ease down towards the middle 80s towards the end of this week, so we could be rivaling some record highs even with the temperature across the board in the lower to middle 80s. Overnights in the 60s and near 70 degrees, and again by the weekend, chance for a couple of passing showers. Again, giving you a first alert to the warm temperatures, but the thing is that eventually, things will start to break, and there could be some rain on the back end of the extended forecast. Again, you can find the 10-day anytime on actionnews5.com or the Action News 5 First Alert Weather app.
Okay, I want to talk about this. Memphis police providing some new information about the man who was shot downtown on Friday. He was shot while waiting for an Uber. Investigators say several people, including the suspects, attacked someone standing outside waiting for an Uber. This video released by the Memphis Police Department, it shows the act here of some people running away. They say someone from the group pulled out a gun. They shot the victim in this case. If you have any information on this, please contact Crime Stoppers. You can either call or text, remain anonymous. That number is 901-528-CASH. Arkansas Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders signs off on an executive order to remove what's called woke language from state documents. The governor gave examples of the terms the executive order would ban, like pregnant people, birth giver, and laboring person. The governor said the order was being signed in defense of women. She said the order would ban what she said are ridiculous words in state documents.
Taking a stand against woke nonsense, what frankly started as a fad among a few grad students, has seeped down into corporations, the healthcare industry, and increasingly state government. It's demeaning to women, and it needs to stop.
Okay, she said there was one specific instance of the language being used at the State Department, but other than that, the other language instances have been reported to her office. We want to say congratulations to the Memphis Tiger football team bringing home the Bones Trophy this weekend. Did you see the trophy that they play for, UAB versus Memphis? It's a huge rack of ribs, and the trophy's almost 100 pounds heavy here. But in the competition that mattered, Memphis beat UAB in Birmingham. They moved to 5-2 on the season, and there is a shot of that trophy. A full rack of ribs, and of course, that belongs in the place that has the best ribs in the world, Memphis, Tennessee. All right, let's talk a little bit about diabetes right now and some of the issues associated with diabetes. It is a disease when the blood sugar or the blood glucose is too high. It affects about 37 million adults and youth in the U.S., about 11% of the population. Let's talk about preventing diabetes and the health problems associated with it. I'm joined now by Dr. Griffin Rogers, Director of the National Institute of Diabetes and Digestive and Kidney Disease. He joins us on the Action News 5 digital desk. Dr. Rogers, nice to have you back. Let's talk about how exactly diabetes affects the body and what kind of health problems it causes. Good morning.
Sure. Good morning. And, thanks for having me on your show. Of course, we're coming up on National Diabetes Month, and the theme for this year is the Take Charge of Tomorrow, Preventing Diabetes Health Problem. You quoted the statistics in terms of the total number of people in this country. The numbers are in terms of the percentage of population, are even higher in Tennessee at like 12.2%. High blood glucose, as you pointed out, as a result of diabetes, can damage blood vessels and the nerves in the body. And it's more likely that you will suffer diabetes with high blood pressure and high cholesterol, which can also damage those nerves. As a direct result of that, individuals with diabetes are at increased risk of heart attacks and strokes, certain types of cancer, and it can affect the kidneys, the eyes, the teeth, the feet. Diabetes is a leading cause of non-traumatic amputation in this country. And in fact, almost any organ system can be affected by the ravages of diabetes. So managing the diabetes as soon as possible after the diagnosis is critically important to try to avoid these serious health complications.
Yeah, I was going to say, managing diabetes, that is certainly an issue, and I know a lot of people find it difficult. It's certainly an issue here in the Memphis, North Mississippi, Eastern Arkansas, West Tennessee area. Do you have maybe some suggestions or some tips for people who are having trouble managing diabetes or making lifestyle changes?
Sure. Well, managing the diabetes, we have this mnemonic called the ABCs, which is something useful to kind of remember and talk to your healthcare provider about. A stands for the A1C, which is a test that manages or that measures your average blood sugar in the previous 3 months. The B stands for your blood pressure, and the C stands for your cholesterol. And as I mentioned, those values either independently or together can cause damage to the blood vessels. So working with your healthcare provider and setting goals, individual goals for your A1C tests and your blood pressure measurements and your cholesterol are vitally important. Things that you can do in the meantime, though, are managing your eating plan and choosing fruits and vegetables and whole grains and foods that are lower in calories and fats and sugar and salt, for example, are extremely important. And drinking water more often as opposed to sugar-sweetened beverages, critically important. Another thing that you can do is your physical activity. And for most adults, that's 30 minutes a day of physical activity. Of course, you can join a gym, but it's just as easy to walk 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week. And if you can't do it all in one setting, you can break up the 30 minutes into 2 15 minutes or 3 10-minute segments. And then finally, getting proper sleep. We know that for most adults, that's 7 or 8 hours of sleep per night. And we're now learning that sleep has a major impact on your ability to maintain a healthy weight, as well as maintaining your blood glucose or blood sugar values in an acceptable range.
You know, it's fascinating, to hear the different ways that people can really get their blood sugar under control and really kind of prevent diabetes from happening. Anything else you want to mention, Doctor, before we let you go with regards to this? Again, diabetes certainly a prevalent issue here.
No, absolutely. The one thing I would say is that, as in any chronic disease, feeling stressed and sad and angry is quite common among people with diabetes. So working with a healthcare counselor or working closely with your friends and families and telling them about your feelings can oftentimes be sufficient to get you, out of these moods and improve your overall level of control. Trying to relax by doing deep breathing or gardening or tasks, whatever your hobby is, or walking again. And as I said, trying to get the 7 to 8 hours of sleep per night can improve your mood as well as your energy levels.
Got it. Okay, Dr. Griffin Rogers, we appreciate your time this morning. Very valuable information for our audience. Thank you very much.
Sure. And if your listeners, your viewers would like more information, please visit our website at niddk.nih.gov, or they can follow us on social media at niddkgov.
Right behind the Agri-Center's Farmers Market, just off Germantown and Walnut Grove, lies the Mid-South Corn Maze. This year's design, an astronaut planting an American flag. The theme, Lost in Space.
aliens, zombified astronauts, everything.
Justin Taylor, who calls himself the Colonel,
The corny spelling.
says the maze was started on a college whim.
Right out of school, started this in 2001, and 23 years later, we're still here doing it. The very first corn maze was the skyline of Memphis. And I repeated that for the 20th year anniversary. And that was actually over in Crittenden County, Arkansas.
The next year, the Colonel brought the maze to Memphis and the Agri Center.
It's right in the middle of town. We're right here at Germantown Road in Walnut Grove. It's a great location. And just the mission statement of Agri Center is introducing people to agriculture. And we do a lot of school groups, church groups. A lot of people have never been in a cornfield before until they set foot in this one.
Every year, the corn maze takes on a new design.
We have a big dartboard and we throw ears of corn at it, and wherever it lands, that's what we choose.
Are you serious?
No.
The Colonel says they actually try to pick themes that appeal to kids, even caricatures of Grizzlies players. But if mazes aren't your thing, don't fret.
And if you come out here to the corn maze, there's so much more to do out here, like corn cannons.
You can win a Tops barbecue cheeseburger, a barbecue sandwich, or you can win a Marco's pizza, a Ben & Jerry's ice cream. We have the jumping pillow, which is like a big bouncy, jumpy house.
There's even a spot to take memorable photos.
And then of course, everything is haunted in October. So Friday and Saturday nights in October and Halloween, we have all the scary stuff and the haunted hayride.
However, the big draw out here is the corn maze.
Now, the Colonel tells me that the average time for this maze is about 45 minutes to an hour, but sometimes people get a little lost. Hello?
Absolutely. People get lost year after year. That's what you're here for.
But it's all in good, wholesome fun.
You're putting your phone down. You're outside with your family. You're sweating, exercising, and just enjoying something that is not in the norm of your regular routine.
If you do get lost, the Colonel says there's help at the end of the night.
We send the rescue dogs in at midnight.
Not completely sure whether he's joking or not, but just in case.
Hello?
Somewhere, lost in space and the Mid-South corn maze.
Help!
Kim Clark, Action News 5.
We know Halloween is rapidly approaching, a couple weeks away here. Zombies are growing among us, and we're talking about the trees. There's what's considered zombie trees, and with all the dry weather, unusually dry weather we've had this season, these trees can look healthy, but they're actually dead. Let's talk more about this issue right now with Nathan Baker. He's district manager of Jones Brothers Trees and Landscapes. Nathan, good morning to you. Thanks for joining us once again on the digital desk. We appreciate you being here. So let's talk about the signs of what a zombie tree looks like. Good morning.
Good morning, Andrew. So when we're talking about zombie trees, we're not talking about a festive tree, right? We're talking about these are actual trees in your landscapes that are all around in the city of Memphis. So zombie trees in particular are trees that may not seem dangerous, but have some underlying issues. So we're talking about damage from some of the storms that we had this year. We're talking about some heat-stressed trees. We're talking about trees that can have all sorts of hidden damages and that are hard to spot for the homeowner. So luckily, there's some ways to spot the signs. Okay, so how do you identify them? So some issues you could check to identify or prevent damage. You could take a walk around your yard. You could inspect trees for dead limbs or decay. You could look for cracks in the bark that extend into the tree's trunk or limbs. You could have some discolored foliage. So we're getting into fall now where the trees leaves are going to start changing colors. But you want to make sure that you don't have anything abnormal. So if your tree started dropping leaves in July and August, there's possible that there's some issues with that tree. Is your tree lifting at the roots? Is it leaning excessively? These could all be signs of trouble.
Yeah, and we have thousands of viewers that join us each and every morning here, Nathan, on the digital desk. If some of those symptoms that you mentioned are resonating with people and they think, my tree might be a zombie tree, what should they do? Is there another way to confirm it?
So you should get an expert opinion. If you notice any issues with your tree health check, call a certified arborist, and certified arborists can help address problems that are visible to the naked eye. Plus, they could help identify damage lurking inside the tree, and they can help you create a plan of action. When you're looking to get an expert opinion, make sure you verify that they have some certification. So we're talking about ISA certification, TCIA accreditation. Make sure you're checking for proof of insurance and even possibly a list of references. Hiring an unqualified arborist can cost you more in the long run, since you may end up losing that tree and having to replace instead of being able to salvage that tree. A lot of times, if the price sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
Let me talk about this. So let's say someone has identified a tree in your backyard. They're like, okay, this is what's considered a zombie tree. Is there any way to salvage it, or does it have to be removed? Because we know removing a tree is it costs a lot of moolah.
Oh yeah, for sure. So you have to know your options and take action. So unlike real zombies, these defective trees can be dangerous. Certainly you can develop a plan of action to get around it. So there may be some maintenance to do, including fertilizing, pruning, some cabling and bracing. So those are some of the things and measures that you can take to help mitigate some of the risk. But you also have to keep in mind, where's the tree located? If it's at the very back of your property and there's no targets around it to cause damage to, then it's going to be a lower risk tree than if that tree is, in your front yard, over your house, over your driveway where you park your cars. That tree is going to pose a higher risk level, even if it's in the same condition. So you got to keep all those things in mind, and an arborist can help you identify those hazards and help mitigate those.
Okay, and so it's been so dry here in Memphis and the Mid-South. It's such an issue. I would think there's a lot of zombie trees out there. What else can we tell our viewers right now about them and ways to deal with the problem?
All right, so zombie trees are a hazard, but unlike their namesake, they don't have to cause fear and panic. By giving your trees the attention they need and getting the right advice for your tree care questions, you can enjoy a safe fall in your landscape.
Okay, anything else you want to mention, Nathan, before we let you go? Because I know that this is a pressing issue for a lot of people out there.
The best thing that you can do is walk around and look and do it frequently, because whenever you do it frequently, you'll be able to notice changes. If you see some changes that don't seem quite right, I would just encourage you to make sure you get an expert opinion.
Okay, Nathan Baker, Jones Brothers Trees and Landscape District Manager. Nathan, we appreciate your time. Valuable information for everybody out there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrew.
All right, let's talk about breast cancer, because it is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and I'm wearing a different pink tie each day, sent in by various people. This one was sent by Donna Jo Miles in Cordova. She sent it. She is a breast cancer survivor, and she has been in remission for 7 years. So, Donna, congratulations to you. Thank you for sending me this tie. But I want to talk right now about inflammatory breast cancer and how it's different than other breast cancers. Let's bring in Dr. Melanie Crutchfield-Whitten, who knows about this, wrote a blog about it. Dr. Melanie, thank you for joining us. It's nice to have you back on the digital desk. So tell me, how is inflammatory breast cancer different from other breast cancers? Good morning. Melanie, I can't hear you. Is your mic on?
Hi. Sorry
there
about
it
that.
is. Yes, no problem. Go ahead.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes. So inflammatory breast cancer is actually pretty rare. It's about 1 to 5% of all the breast cancers that are diagnosed, but it is the most aggressive kind of breast cancer. Usually it's something that happens pretty fast, like a woman goes from a normal appearing breast to a breast that sort of looks like it gets big, sort of like a bowling ball, with they call it like an orange peel type of appearance, like a very rough, thick appearance of her breast skin in a matter of weeks or months.
Okay, and I understand inflammatory breast cancer is unique in other ways. Can you explain some of the other ways that makes it so unique?
Yes. So whereas regular breast cancer usually presents as a lump or a mass, inflammatory breast cancer is where the cancer cells are blocking the lymphatics in the skin. So we have lymphatics everywhere to help to when we get a cold or anything like that, to help with inflammation in our body or infection in our body. So in inflammatory breast cancer, the cancer cells block those lymphatics, blocks that highway that's usually used for infections. And that's why you get the characteristic, it's called peau d'orange, but it looks like an orange peel of your skin. The woman's skin gets really tough, gets really like leathery, like it looks like a really bad infection.
Okay, and I understand, Melanie, that this is something that's more common among African American women, women that are over the age of 40, and those who are overweight. Is that all accurate?
Yes. So in general, although breast cancer is more common in Caucasian women, African American women have more aggressive forms of breast cancer, and inflammatory breast cancer is the most aggressive type of breast cancer. So yes, Black women do get inflammatory breast cancer more often, as well as women between like 40 and 50, between that age, and obesity does increase your risk of cancer, yes.
So how does inflammatory breast cancer get diagnosed? And by the time it's diagnosed, is it considered an aggressive form? I mean, is it something that women can recover from?
Yes, so it is considered an aggressive form. So there are 4 stages of breast cancer usually, and inflammatory breast cancer is usually either a stage 3 or stage 4 means it's metastatic throughout the body. But inflammatory breast cancer is automatically a stage 3 type of cancer. It does grow fast because it's aggressive, and so the way it's diagnosed is a bit different than the way regular breast cancer is diagnosed. Usually we just take a piece of the skin versus a piece of the lump that's inside the breast.
Okay, and is the treatment the same? Is it chemotherapy? What is it?
So regular breast cancer treatments are lots of different kinds, and it just really depends on what type of breast cancer. Some women don't even need chemotherapy if they're diagnosed with stage 1 or stage 2 breast cancer. But with inflammatory breast cancer, you have chemotherapy before your surgery called neoadjuvant chemotherapy. And then you have your surgery where you have to have the breast removed, unfortunately, as well as the lymph nodes from under your arm. And then after that, you have radiation.
Okay, and what is the prognosis of women with inflammatory breast cancer? I mean, we mentioned that it is very it's an aggressive form. Is the prognosis good once it's identified?
Well, we are working on clinical trials that can help, but unfortunately it's pretty poor. It's about 30% chance of surviving 5 years.
Yikes. Okay, so this is all the more important reason to get that mammogram, right? Can you talk again about times to get that mammogram?
Absolutely. So it's very important for us, especially in the setting of inflammatory breast cancer. It's very important to check your breast. Check your breast once a month. Make sure, and also like whenever you're taking a shower or a bath, make sure things are the same as it was before. Do a self breast exam once a month. My recommendation is to do it the first of the month every month to make sure that there are no differences from the month before. And start getting mammograms at age 40 or 10 years before a mother or sister was diagnosed. For example, if your mom was diagnosed with breast cancer at age 45, you start getting mammograms at age 35.
Okay, anything else that we can talk about with regards to this issue? It sounds very it sounds like it's a very prevalent, important issue that we need to discuss, especially this month. Anything else?
Absolutely, it is a very serious issue, but it's it's treatable, as well as there are clinical trials going on all the time. And if anyone has any questions, they can feel free to call us at Methodist, and we'll be sure to take care of them.
Okay, Dr. Melanie Critchfield-Winton, we really appreciate you with Regional One. Thanks so much. Very informative, and I know that this is helping people. We have thousands who join us each and every morning, so thanks for helping us inform the public. Appreciate it.
No problem. Just give us a call at Methodist Hospital. We'll be happy to take care of you. 901-516-9000.
My apology. It's Methodist Health.
It's
yes.
okay.
Thank
Yeah.
you for that. Appreciate it, Melanie.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, we're going to take a short break here. Back in 60 seconds.
And thanks for joining us here on the Action News 5 Digital Desk. We're talking some pretty quiet weather across the Mid-South over the next couple of days, but warmer than average by a long shot. And that's your first alert to some warm temperatures that are going to be in play, not only from the standpoint of the next day or so, it's really going to be this entire week. And actually, by the end of this week, we're talking near record warm. Temperatures today starting off in the upper 50s and lower 60s, working our way towards the lower to middle 80s before it's all said and done. A little bit of a breeze still coming through here out of the south, and that's going to help to boost up the temperatures. We'll also see a lot of high and mid-level clouds that will break for a couple of peaks of sunshine by the time we head towards the afternoon hours. As you'll notice here on the First Alert Futurecast, a couple of breaks in the clouds by lunchtime with temperatures at that point towards the lower to middle 70s on our way to the lower to middle 80s before the afternoon is out. Tonight, clouds will thicken back up. Overnight lows back down through the 60s starting off on your Tuesday. Look at the rain to the west of us. Probably thinking, maybe that could get here. Unfortunately, it stays out to the west of us as high pressure to the south and east of us winds out, and that keeps our temperatures quite warm and keeps the weather pretty quiet over the next few days. So the rain stays far away from us. If you want to find some appreciable rainfall, you're going to go back up towards the north, up towards Springfield and Joplin, Fayetteville, and Tulsa, and even up towards St. Louis as well. We're going to stay dry here between now and probably the end of this week. And by the time we head towards the end of the week, the temperatures are going to still be plenty toasty. It doesn't take very much when you have a very dry ground. Of course, it's been very dry as of late, and that's allowed for the drought monitor to expand with the severe drought now moving into more sections of the Action News 5 coverage area. Extreme drought across portions of northwest Mississippi. Right now, Panola County, the only county in the Action News 5 coverage area underneath the burn ban. But at any rate, it doesn't matter because we're going to have that low humidity, occasionally some breezes, and that's going to lead up with the dry conditions, lead up to fire weather issues between now and probably the end of this week until we can maybe get some rain in here by next week. But even with that being said, between now and probably Sunday, just not a ton of rain. We might catch a shower here or there on the back end of this week as that frontal boundary gets a little bit closer to us, but it just doesn't break the plane of the Mississippi River until probably early next week. Of course, stay up to date with the very latest on the 10-day forecast on the Action News 5 First Alert Weather app. You can download it in the Google Play Store and the Apple App Store, and you can see what happens with this upcoming system. Again, this is giving you a first alert to a potential system, and I say a potential system because if you were watching last week, we were talking about a system that could come down the pipeline for this week. And each day I mentioned it seems like it got pushed back a day farther back. And unfortunately, it seems like it's done it again. But the general consensus still remains the same, even though that the days may have been pushed back. And again, it goes back to that ridge of high pressure still burgeoning out of the south and east, holding everything back. But eventually, when that starts to break up, it will allow for this front to make some progress in our direction. The question mark is when exactly will that happen? Well, as it stands right now, a lot of the guidance would suggest early next week, right around Halloween. That would feature rain moving into the fold and colder temperatures diving southward as well. Look at that blue line there. That's the 32-degree line, 7 in the morning on Tuesday of next week. Obviously not close enough to us, but still on its way, and will definitely be trending cooler by next week. But in the meantime, warmer temperatures near record highs Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Today's record high at 89, so we're not going to hit that. But if you look at the record highs, they start to ease down towards the middle 80s towards the end of this week, so we could be rivaling some record highs, even with the temperature across the board in the lower to middle 80s. Overnight's in the 60s and near 70 degrees, and again by the weekend, chance for a couple of passing showers. Again, giving you a first alert to the warm temperatures, but the thing is that eventually things will start to break, and there could be some rain on the back end of the extended forecast. Again, you can find the 10-day anytime on actionnews5.com or the Action News 5 First Alert Weather app.
Andrew Douglas here in the Action News 5 digital desk. We know that Halloween is 1 week from tomorrow. It's going to be a big, big day. Of course, it is every year. And so with all of those kids being out on the streets, it's so important to talk about safety. Let's talk about safety right now with Jaretta Holland. She's Community Outreach and Injury Prevention Program Coordinator at Regional One Health. Jaretta, thanks so much for joining us on the digital desk. If you had to name like one big headline, the number one thing that parents and kids should do this Halloween, what would it be? Good morning.
Good morning, Andrew. It would be to try to just be as safe as possible when you're out on Halloween. We really want to talk about those costumes, flame-resistant materials when you're trick-or-treating, those costumes. When you have costumes, you want to make sure that they are flame-resistant. If you're making your own costume, you want to make sure that you're using polyester or nylon. Also, if you're going to wear a mask with your costume, make sure that that mask is not blocking your vision. You want to make sure that you can see when you're crossing the street and getting all those goodies. So an alternative may be to wear makeup or a hat as an alternative to wearing a mask. Also, you want to make sure that you are seen in the dark. So check to see if your costume can be seen in the dark. If not, think about putting on reflective tape or carrying glow sticks and a flashlight.
I remember back in the day when I was doing trick-or-treating, I always hated the masks, and I would much rather opt for either makeup or something else where I could just, have a hat or something like that, because the mask was just, it was too much, to walk around the entire trick-or-treating time with this mask on. So I totally get it. And safety with the costume is so key. Let's talk about the actual trick-or-treating when you're going up to the house for candy. What are some good safety guidelines there, Jaretta?
So always have an adult with the young trick-or-treaters, because you're going up to homes and you want to make sure that your younger trick-or-treaters are safe. So have an adult with you if you are a younger trick-or-treater. And also sidewalk safety. Make sure that the young trick-or-treaters know to stay on the sidewalk and to cross only at intersections and crosswalks. This goes for your older trick-or-treaters as well.
What about the candy itself, Jaretta? The candy, if you're of a certain generation, you always worried about razor blades in the apples or something like that. I don't know if that is in fact a worry anymore, but what are the big concerns out there when it comes to candy?
Right. The best part of Halloween is the candy, and it's always, always best to be safe, Andrew. So you may want to suggest that the trick-or-treaters eat before they leave home, so that way they can help to reduce some of the anticipation to getting to the candy before the parents can expect it. And you want to make sure that all of the candy is inspected before you eat it. And if you have allergies, if your child has allergies, make sure that you read the labels first. Also, tell your kids not to eat any candy that is not commercially wrapped. You want to check for signs of tampering, such as small pinholes in the wrapper, discoloration, unusual appearance of the candy. And if anything looks suspicious, throw it out.
Yeah, that's always a good thing. And, I was always told that, like, when our kids were little, go in the neighborhood, and if you can, go with the houses that you know the neighbors, so there's no funny business. What else can we talk about, Jarita?
Right. We always emphasize that to stay with groups, especially the older kids that don't want to go trick-or-treating with their parents anymore. They want to go with their friends because they're older, they're not the babies. And so we advise that they also know the safety rules of the sidewalk, to walk on the sidewalks, to cross at crosswalks or intersections, and never walk in the middle of the street. Also, give the trick-or-treaters a specific time to return home by. Make sure that they know that they have to be home by a certain time. And again, trick-or-treat in your neighborhood or a neighborhood that is familiar to you. And you always want to make sure that someone in your group has a cell phone in case something happens and you need to reach out to your trick-or-treater.
All right, Jarita Hollins, Injury Prevention Program Coordinator, Burn and Trauma Services at Regional One Health. We really appreciate these tips, Jarita. Thanks so very much.
Thank you.
All right, Amanda Hansen here in the Action News 5 digital desk. So you finally found the apartment that you want. You can afford it. You have gotten through, you've been accepted. You've filled out everything that you needed to. And the last thing you need to do, fill out your lease. Well, we have an expert here to talk more about some of the things you maybe need to keep in mind before you sign the dotted line. It is it's founder and CEO of Dwellzy, Jonas Bordeaux. Good morning. How you doing?
Good morning. I'm doing great. Great to be here.
Well, I'm glad to have you on because I think this is something people here in the Mid-South are really interested to know about. We get emails and phone calls all the time about tenants that are upset with their landlords and they're not fixing this. I don't have the AC's not repaired, and they're telling us we have to pay for this out of pocket. So let's kind of go through that checklist on what you need to do before you agree to a lease.
Well, the first and most important thing that you really need to think about with the lease is this is a legal contract and you actually have to read it. I know we're all conditioned these days. We sign so many contracts in the course of just getting on the internet for 10 minutes. You accept contracts right, left, and center, and most of the time that has no consequences. But when you're signing a lease for an apartment or a rental house, that is a binding legal contract, and it can be really quite complex. I've seen leases that are 85 pages or longer. So there's a lot of details in there, and you really need to attempt to understand it. Some of the basics are, how much are you actually going to have to pay? Some of the headline costs may not include some other expenses that are in there, so you really need to understand that. What are your renewal rights? What can you expect from the landlord in terms of repairs, as you mentioned, Amanda? How's the landlord going to behave? A lot of that is written in the lease. So if you read the lease, you really understand that a lot better. If you don't, you're at a huge disadvantage.
Good advice. And like you said, some of those leases can be 80 pages long. And a lot of times I've been through the process where you're getting the apartment. They'll be like, well, this piece of paper essentially just means this, and they just want you to sign. Right. So like you said, reading that fine print, making sure you fully understand what they're going to be responsible for and whatnot. And then I know at one point was talking about the acceleration clause. Can you talk about that and the importance of recognizing and paying attention to that as well?
Yeah, the acceleration clause can be a real surprise for folks. Sometimes you move into a place and it seems great, and then you find out, lo and behold, the landlord is selling the place and you have to be out in 30 days. That can be quite shocking for a lot of people. But so, read the lease, look for a clause that says what happens if the landlord sells, or if the landlord wants you out for some reason. Do they have an acceleration clause in there that allows them to end the lease early under certain situations? Because you may think you're secure for 12 months or longer. But with an acceleration clause in there, your lease can end much faster. So that's a really important thing to look for.
There's also the whole thing about the landlord's right to enter your apartment, right? Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that is, fundamentally you're renting a place, it's a landlord's place. They have some right to enter, not only for, things that you might not want them to do, but also just to do basic maintenance. And, sometimes there's things like replacing the HVAC filter that they need to do from time to time just to maintain the place. So there's generally rules in the lease about what the landlord's right of entry is, how much notice do they have to give you, what kind of repeated entry is allowed, what circumstances under which they're allowed. And generally it's quite specific in there about that. So if you know that and you understand that, that's going to stand you in good stead, and you'll be, much better able to deal with the landlord and the things that they have to do. If you don't, and you get frustrated with the landlord coming by, sometimes the landlord just needs to do the basics on your place. And other times the landlord really shouldn't be in there or is really bothering you if, for example, they're marketing the place or trying to re-rent it. It can be quite invasive. So understanding the lease, understanding what their rights are and what your rights are is really important to make sure you get along with your landlord in that situation. Another thing that I thought was interesting was making sure you understand about whether or not you can sublet or Airbnb your rental, because I think a lot more people are doing that sort of thing now. Yeah, no, rents are up a lot. I was just looking before this call, 3-bedroom house rents, which is a very popular rental type in Memphis, up almost 20% over the last year. And, some people are saying, well, I'm going to be out of town, or I'm going to be staying at a friend's house for a couple of days. I'll just Airbnb it and that'll help me make my rent. But that is a very specific thing that's called out in the lease most of the time as to whether you're allowed to not just sublet for short term, but sublet for long term. Say you take a job in another part of the country and you've got another 6 months left on your lease. Are you able to sublet it to somebody else, or are you on the hook for the balance of that lease? It's really important, again, to read the lease to understand that. And increasingly, landlords are allowing Airbnb activity in the house so long as it's done responsibly. But it's not the case everywhere, and a lot of landlords are still not allowing it. So again, understanding what your lease allows and how that's going to impact your ability to make rent. If you're counting on an extra $200, $300, $500 from Airbnb-ing your place in order to pay the rent, you got to make sure you're able to do that. For sure. And like I said, it's so common. People are wanting to do that now. And like you said, with the rent, it's expensive to rent here in Memphis. And so, yeah. It really is. $1,600 a month rent for a 3-bedroom house, that's almost $20,000 a year. Like, that is a lot of money. It is a lot of money. That's why I finally decided to buy. So I'm in a home now, but I have been a renter for 10 plus years. So yeah, it's very expensive. Another thing I think is important that people need to make sure to look at is, what happens after their lease is over, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, absolutely. The end of the lease is a really important time for a bunch of reasons. Number one, you've got a security deposit on the hook.
So you want to make sure you leave your place in good condition. You want to make sure you take some photographs of the place when you're moving in the original condition before you put a single piece of your furniture in or touch the place. And you send those over to your landlord so you have agreement on what the place looked like when you moved in. And then when you're moving out, take a look at those photos and understand what the difference is. If there's a couple of nail holes from putting up paintings and that sort of thing, that shouldn't be an issue. And there's always wear and tear. Carpet only lasts 3 or 4 years, that kind of thing. But if your dog has dug a hole in the carpet, or if something went wrong and there's a hole in the wall somewhere, you're going to be on the hook for that. So really understanding the condition of the place is important. And then understanding your notice requirements. Do you have to give 90 days notice, 60 days notice, 30 days notice? That'll tell you how far in advance you need to give that notice. And then there's a lot of rules around, what the inspections look like, how clean you have to leave the place, all of those sorts of things. So it's really, again, important to understand the lease and what the terms are around that, because you want to leave in good condition. And in a lot of cases, your new landlord will call your old landlord to find out how you were as a tenant in that home. And so you want that landlord to say nice things about you wherever possible. And you want to get your security deposit back for sure.
Yeah, I was going to say, that was where I was going next, is making sure you know how you're going to get your security deposit back. Is there going to be some sort of cleaning fee that's going to be automatically docked off from what your security deposit was? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, in the lease, there will be detailed description of how your security deposit is going to be handled. Most of the time, it's held by the landlord for the duration of the lease, and it is available to you, but not a guarantee that it's going to come back to you. And there's always, challenges on the margin with differences. Did that carpet really need to be replaced? Did that wall really need to be repainted? There's a lot of frustration in those details, but most of the time, it's pretty straightforward. If you can document that you are leaving the place in the same condition that you found it, you are entitled to get your security deposit back. The key is you have to have that documentation to make sure you're doing it. Most of the time, if you're renting from a big company, it can be fairly straightforward, although even there I've seen problems with disagreements between the landlord and the company that they're renting from. But with individual landlords, there's a lot of nuance and a lot of lack of understanding about how these things work. So really, make sure you have your act together just in case your landlord doesn't. Again, make sure you send those photos when you first move in about the condition to your landlord and you all agree. And then when you serve notice, do a walkthrough with the landlord and understand any issues. If you have the ability to do a little patching and painting, then go ahead and do that and talk to the landlord about what you're going to do. Always make sure you leave it as clean as possible when you go out. If you can do that yourself, that's great. Sometimes that means getting a cleaning crew yourself through. I guarantee you a cleaning crew you're going to find is probably going to be less expensive than a cleaning crew the landlord's going to use and charge you for. So make sure you really, tick and tie all those details.
Good point. All good information. And, I figured it would be an easy transition to say, like you said, you've read the lease, you went through it all, and you mentioned the rent in Memphis just being so high.
Yeah.
Are there ways to negotiate your lease? Is that possible?
100%. And thank you so much for asking for that, because, so many folks don't realize they can negotiate their rent. You wouldn't buy a car without negotiating. Everybody's very conditioned to that experience. But it's exactly the same around the rent. And there's all kinds of different things you can get. And the most important thing is to really understand what you want and understand what the landlord wants. Say you need an extra parking space and the landlord has one. Maybe that's something you can negotiate for. Say you don't need the parking space for your unit and you can give that back and the landlord can rent that to somebody else. Maybe that's an opportunity to get a lower rent. Maybe you're handy and you want to, do some fix up stuff around the house, and that's something you enjoy. Well, that's a great skill set to have, and that's really valuable to the landlord, especially small landlords, because they often don't have the resources to do that effectively themselves. So if you can take on a portion of that, that's worth a lower rent in a lot of cases. So, again, understand what your landlord wants. Understand what you want and are able to contribute, and then try to find the middle ground where everybody benefits a little bit. And you can often save some serious money on the rent or get a few other things thrown in, free parking spot, an extra month of rent. There's all kinds of different things you could possibly ask for.
And I think a lot of times people don't even think that that's an option, that they can't negotiate, that they just have to sign the dotted line and what you see is what you got to pay. And so good stuff. I'm glad that we went through some of that. So anything else you want to make sure we mention before we let you go?
You know, I think the key is just renting's a great choice for a lot of people, right? It gives you a lot of flexibility. You know, you have more time in your day because you don't have to do maintenance of your own home. And in almost every market in the country, including Memphis, renting is cheaper than owning in most cases. So it's a great choice for a lot of people, and it's something to be celebrated to get your new rental home. You know, the important thing is just to find the right place for you.
Jonas Bordeaux, CEO and founder of Dwellzy. This has been a great conversation. It's so informative and helpful. And I mean, it gives people that are renting right now something to think about. So I appreciate you and your time.
Amanda, thank you so much. And if your viewers want anything more, Everything Renting is now available in bookstores with a lot more details on this. So thank you.
Okay, that does it for us here in the Action News 5 Digital Desk. Have yourself a wonderful Monday afternoon. We got Action News 5 Midday with Ariana Poindexter, Spencer Denton coming to you at the top of the hour. They're going to bring you the latest in terms of the forecast and news for you coming up in just a little bit. So make sure you stay tuned for that, and then we'll crank up the Digital Desk one more time on a Tuesday. It'll be from 7 until 11. We do that each and every weekday morning on actionnews5.com, our free news app, and all of our digital platforms. Have yourself a great one.